All right, Shalom Alechem Rabotai. Welcome to our Wednesday class. I'm Yalkut Yosef. Baruch Hashem, I have on my wall over here the list of topics that we've gone through, thank God, and we're about to start a new one. But before that, let's welcome our newest comer, Andy. Baruch haba, Bruchim habayim. Good to see you
Thank you.
again.
Thank you
How's it
so
going?
much. Pleasure to be here. Honored to be here. Thank
Oh,
you.
it's our
Thank you.
honor. Baruch haba, Baruch haba. So I was just going with the guys over what we've learned so far. We've learned the way to behave in the morning, Hanagot Adam Baboker. We learned the Halakhot of Tzitzit, Halakhot of Tefillin, the Halakhot of Shachar, Halakhot Kirat Shema, Tefillah, Vidui, Sefer Torah, Bet Knesset. And now our next topic is breaking bread. We're about to do Netilat Yadayim, Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz. So we're going to discuss in these Halakhot. I'll give you a look from above. What type of Netilot Yadayim do we do for different situations? What about the vessel that we do the Netilah with? When do we need it? What type of vessel does it need to be? And what type of water do we need to use? Is all the water kosher, or if it's water that was dirty, etc.? We're going to touch these topics. Beforehand, we want to dedicate this shiur tonight. We have a lot of Ilun Nishmat, my father-in-law, Yehuda ben Yafa, both of my wife's grandmother, Yafa bat Yitzchak, and Yehuda bat Chanukah, as well as today, and Chana bat Avraham, the mother of Rabbi William, and what's the name of your grandmother, Simon? Let's dedicate her Ilui Nishmat as well.
Tomorrow, but I forgot her mother's name.
Tamara,
Sorry.
but Chava, it works as well, B'ezrat Hashem. And above that, today is the Yom HaShoah over here, the day of the Holocaust, where everybody commemorates the 6 million Jews that were murdered. So we want to dedicate all of this to the Ilui Nishama as well. And let's begin. So Siman Kuf Nun Chet, the next Siman that we're going to learn is Siman 158 in the Shulchan Aruch, and it talks about Netilat Yadayim. So Netilat Yadayim, is it a mitzvah from the Torah to wash our hands before we eat bread, or is it a mitzvah from Chachamim? So this is one of the mitzvot that it's from Chachamim. It's not written in the Torah. However, it got a lot of importance. It's one of the mitzvot that it gets extra importance, almost as if it's from the Torah, because they learned it from a pasuk in the Torah, Chachamim, or at least it's called asmachta. They put a sign to themselves why we need to wash their hands because of a certain pasuk in the Torah. The pasuk in the Torah says, "V'itkedashtem v'yitem kedushim," that you are holy and you should become holy. So they learned from that, v'yitem kedushim. What does it mean become holy? Wash your hands before you eat. So this is from here we learned the Netilat Yadayim. But the Netilah, really, what's the reasoning behind it? And I think we'll all be surprised. Why do we wash? Anybody know? Why do we wash our hands before we eat bread? What's the reason? Anybody know? We do it all the time for years. Why? Where did it come from? So the
You must be
simple
clean hands. You must be
sorry?
have, you need clean hands before you eat.
Very good. That's the chat. That's the first, the
Okay?
simple understanding. Cleanliness. Your hands are, and the Halakha calls our hands yadayim askaniyot. The hands are businessmen. Like they move from here to there. You don't notice where they go. They're always doing stuff. They're businessmen. They're askaniyot esek, like a business. So you don't know where they were. You're about to break bread. Make sure your hands are clean. But there's another reason, and perhaps this is a deeper reason. It's called mishum serach truma. So that, listen to this, it sounds so far. So that the Kohen wouldn't eat the teruma with his hands not pure. What's happening here? So let's go back 2,000 years ago to the time of Bet HaMikdash. When there was Bet HaMikdash, everybody would give terumot to the Kohen. The Kohen, the Levi, and the Bet HaMikdash, they had a big job and they would receive gifts, terumot. Somebody would do terumot maasrot from their backyard. They had fruits growing from their vineyard, whatever it is. It would go to the Mikdash, the Kohen would receive it. When the Kohen would eat this teruma, this gift that he receives, he had to eat it in kedusha. What does it mean kedusha? His hands had to be completely pure. And because his hands had to be completely pure, now we don't have Bet HaMikdash anymore. What do we have to do with the Kohen eating the terumot in a pure matter? Say the Chachamim, no, when he would get the bread, he had to wash his hands. Tomorrow, Bet HaMikdash is going to be built. When it's going to be built, if we don't all wash our hands before we eat bread, then the Kohanim will also forget that they need to wash their hands before they eat bread. And then when the Beit HaMikdash will be built, then they'll forget that they need to wash their hands before they eat the terumah. It sounds very far away, but that's the reason. That's one of the two reasons why we wash our hands. The Beit HaMikdash will be built. The Kohen will have to eat the terumot, the gifts that he gets, in purity and pure hands. And that's why all of Am Yisrael, 2,000 years later, still have to wash their hands every time before we eat bread, so that the Kohanim will not forget what happens when Beit HaMikdash will be built. Right? But still, there are two reasons, as well as the basic reason that Steve said, and we'll see that it's important to have two reasons, because we're going to learn about another Netilat Yadayim, maybe even later today, that is not for bread, but there's another Netilat Yadayim for when we eat food that is wet from one of 7 liquids. There are 7 liquids that halachically, if your hands are wet from them, you have to wash Netilat Yadayim. Anybody can remember something that we did recently, a Netilah, that we didn't eat bread, that we still washed our hands? Leila Seder, Kadesh Urchatz Tarpas. Why do we wash our hands before Tarpas? Because we are dipping the Tarpas inside a liquid, and there's a Netilat Yadayim. So we'll learn when we get there, does it have to have a beracha? Do we even have to do this Netilat Yadayim? Big machloket. But everybody agrees, before we eat bread, the Netilat Yadayim is done, and what's the proper way to do it? We were going to learn as well. So let's begin. Do we have to wash our hands even if we are not sure that they're dirty? This is one of the topics that Yosef says, like, if my hands are clean, maybe I don't need to do it. Says Yosef, no, you still have to wash. And maybe now that we learned that there are 2 reasons, it makes sense to us. Because even if I don't know that they're dirty, okay. But what about the second reason, that the Kohen won't remember to eat the bread with Bishah, with his other? And therefore, even if I think that my hands I don't know where they travel, they're okay. Still, you have to do the Netilah before you eat the bread. Now, what is the amount of bread that requires me to do Netilat Yadayim? Let's say a woman is baking chalot, and now she says, I wonder how it tasted, and she takes a crumb, a half an ounce, piece like that. Does she have to wash her hands for that or not? What's the halacha with this? So, this is the halacha. If you're eating less than 1 ounce like a kazait, about 27 grams roughly, then I say roughly because even though today when we want to say kazait, we say grams because it's easier, but the way the halacha understands what a kazait is, it's not a measurement of weight, it's a measurement of volume. Rabbi Chaim is very meticulous about this. When people come to eat a matzot and you have to eat a kazait matzah and Leila Seder, he says, don't weigh 27 grams. That's against the halacha. The real halacha is volume. So Rabbi Chaim did a test. He took a matzah, he crumbed it. This is how you measure volume. He crumbed it into little crumbs and he took a cup full of water, and then he shoved all the crumbs into the cup of water, and all the amount of water that spilled out, that's a kazait matzah. So from that, he was able to measure how much volume is in one matzah. And he found that even though a matzah is 30 grams, which is a little bit more than 1 ounce, but in volume, it's 2 kazites, even more than 2 kazites. It's 12, each 12.7 grams came out to be a kazite. So you have to understand that halacha really measures everything by volume. Only Rabbi Vadia and a lot of rabbis in the later generations said a lot of the times the volume and the weight are pretty much the same. For example, water. Water would be the classic case where the volume and the weight are both going to be, 1 ounce or 27, they're going to be the same. But when it comes to stuff that are more fluffy, then you're going to see a difference, like with the matzot. A matzah could weigh 30 grams, but really you need half of it to have a kazait. Or if you eat something very condensed, like chocolate, you may need to have something that's going to weigh even more than 27 grams to get to that volume of a kazait. That's the shita of Rabbi Chaim, and it's very important to him that we use volume. But you should know that there are other rabbis in the generation, including Rav Ovadia Yosef, that says that it could be very confusing for people. Let's make it simple. This is how it's been done for many years. Stick to weight because it's easier. So I feel that's important to say. Know that really the way the Mishnah was written, it was written in volume. Today, whoever wants to use weight, he has, of course, the shoulders of Rav Ovadia Talina, because, to prevent confusion, it's just much more simple. So for that matter, we're going to use weight right now. So the weight of a kazait, let's say it's 27 grams. So if a woman is not going to eat, or even a man, you're about to eat a piece of bread, but you see, I'm not going to eat more than 8 ounces. I'm not going to have 27 grams. I'm going to have a little bit, I just want to taste it. Do I have to do Netilat Yadayim? Is there a minimum? Halacha is under a kazait, under that 1 ounce, you don't have to do Netilat Yadayim. I still say Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Anytime I eat bread, I have to say the beracha. But do I have to wash my hands? No. Yosef says that It would be nice if you do wash your hands, but of course, there's no obligation to do that. What happens if I'm eating less than 2 ounces? The volumes work like this. The first amount is a kazait, 27 grams. Second volume is tabetza, 54 grams. What's the difference? So let's begin with what is always there. No matter how much bread I eat, from a crumb to a huge amount, I have to say hamotzi lechem min haaretz. But the next questions I have to ask myself is, when am I obligated to do netilat yadayim? And on that netilah, when do I say a beracha? We're going to see that sometimes there's a case where you wash your hands, but you don't say a beracha. What would that case be? When I eat an amount that is between 1 kazait to 2 kazait, between 27 grams to 54 grams. So you eat a bun that you see on the bag of the bun, it says 40 grams. You're still going to have to wash your hands for that. But since it's not a kabetza, it's not 54 grams, you wash your hands without saying a beracha, right? Once you get to an amount that is above 54 grams, then you wash with the beracha, which usually happens. You eat challah on Shabbat, 54 grams, like a volume of that is pretty easy to eat. In most cases, the bracha is there. But if you know that you're not eating a lot, or some people are on a diet, so they say, no, I'm allowed to eat 1 ounce of bread. Okay, for 1 ounce of bread, you do netilah, you do not say al netilat yadayim, you do hamotzi, and also berkat hamazon. Once you have 1 ounce of bread, you have to say berkat hamazon on it. But for the meals of Shabbat, someone's on a diet. Ideally, you need to have a kazbetza in every meal, right? Two kazaitot, which is 54 grams. You can't, and you're having one because you're on a diet, you would wash your hands without netilah. By the way, I don't know if we spoke about it, but what is the proper way of washing your hands? So in the morning, we know we wash our hands, one like this, one like that, right? 3 and 3. But when it comes to hamotzi lechem min haaretz, the way of washing is different. We wash 3 on one side and 3 on the other side. That's the custom. I looked it up. The Shulchan Aruch actually says it would be sufficient to just wash one time revi'it mayim, which is about 81 grams, like 3 ounces. So one time water on this side, one time water on that. That would be sufficient. So why do we do 3 on each side? I couldn't find the source to it. I just saw that the Yalkut Yosef writes that that's the custom. But when it's a custom, we don't have questions. That was the custom from the past to wash 3 times on the right hand. So let's go through the order. I'm holding now, I don't have a Netilah or a cup here, but let's say this phone is the cup, all right? I have Netilah. I take my right hand, I fill it with water. This is the Netilah. Then I transfer it to my left hand and I do 1, 2, 3. Transfer back to my right hand, 1, 2, 3. That's the proper way of doing Netilah for bread. In the morning or when you leave the bathroom, we saw that the case is different and we're going to touch that as of the All right. Now, what happens if a person said, no, I'm going to eat a sufficient amount. I'm going to have half a challah right now. So of course, I wash my hands. I say al netilat yadayim. All of a sudden, a person started to eat. He had a little bit of the bread. He says, you know what? I'm not in the mood. So he ends up eating less than 1 ounce of bread. A person like that wasn't supposed to make a bracha. What happens now? Do we force him to eat bread? Because since you already ate, you washed your hands with a bracha, you have to eat 2 ounces. You can't stop after 1 ounce. Or do we say, no, we're human beings. We don't force. The answer is already there. We don't force people. If someone had his intention in his mind that he's going to eat a sufficient amount of bread, that for that he has to wash his hands with a beracha, 54 grams or more, and at the end he says, you know, I'm full, I'm not in the mood, it's okay. Your beracha is not considered beracha levatala. Why? Because it goes according to your intention in the beginning. You had in mind to eat enough, even though you're not eating enough, it's okay. You don't have to force yourself. The Torah is merciful. It's not going to force you. It goes according to your intention. All right. Now, we're going to learn another beracha, or another case where you have to wash your hands with a hamotzi lechem min haaretz and berkat hamazon, but you're not even eating bread. When could that happen? When someone eats a mizonot item, and soon we'll see what mizonot item, but a classic example will be a cake. Let's say you eat a fluffy cake, and you know that you're going to eat an amount that the halacha requires berkat hamazon on it. What is the amount on that? It's not regular bread, it's sweet, it's a cake. Still, if you make, it's called mikvua seuda. If you say, this is my meal right now, and you eat more than 216 grams, that's like 8 kazait or so. In that case, you would wash your hands There's a machloket if you should say beracha or not. The Yosef says, don't say al netilat yadayim. Wash your hands. Say hamotzi lechem min haaretz on the cake, and then say berakat mazon on the cake. Why? Because it's already an amount that is like a meal. And we should know, first of all, what is mezonot? How come a cake becomes mezonot? When we eat bread, it's hamotzi. The cake at the end of the day is a sweet bread. So when does it become a hamotzi? When is it mezonot? You'll see the criteria soon. It's very important to know this. And we'll learn also that what happens if I say one beracha on something, does it cover in case it wasn't the right beracha? For example, if I said mezonot on something that's hamotzi by mistake, I don't have to repeat the beracha because the mezonot already covered the hamotzi. So we're going to learn that. We're going to learn what makes it mezonot, what makes it hamotzi. There's a famous machloket. This is like the ABCs of talking about bread. What is bread and what is halakha calls it pataba bekisnin. That's the definition of the Gemara. There's something sweet that we say mezonot on. But the literal translation means something that comes with a pocket. One of the explanations to what a mezonot item is would be something that has a filling, because the literal translation means, something that has a pocket. Right? So you have a ball with chocolate inside. It's bread on the outside with chocolate on the inside. So this would be one of the opinions to what is mezonot. Another opinion is going to say, no, that's not the criteria. For example, the Rambam says, it goes according to the taste of the dough. It doesn't matter if it's filled or if it's not filled, even if it's not filled at all. If the dough has a sweetness to it, then it's going to become gorem mezonot. Another opinion explains, pataba bekisnin comes from the word koses. Koses means to crumb, meaning if it's a crunchy thing, if it has crumbs like a cracker or like a matzah, we're going to see what the bracha is on the matzah throughout the whole year, not on Pesach. Pesach, everybody agrees it's hamotzi. But if it's a crummy item, then it would also be mezonot. So who do we follow? We have three different opinions. It's interesting because according to the Rambam, if I eat a cracker, it's still going to be hamotzi lechem min haaretz because it's not sweet. Rambam holds the only time it turns into mezonot if it's sweet. Another opinion, no, only if it's filled. Another opinion, no, only if it's crumb. So with all these opinions at the end, and any one of those three cases, we see that we turn it into mezonot. To avoid any machloket, mezonot at the end of the day covers, even if it's hamotzi. It's good for us, and we say, either if it's filled or if it's sweet or if it's crumb. If you think about any cake or biscuit or borekas that you eat, most of the cases is mezonot. In order for it to be bread, it cannot have sweetness. We will touch this as well, but there's something called sweet challah. Ashkenazim love it. For them, the halacha is different with Sephardim. They hold that even if it's a little bit sweet, it's still a motzi lechem min haaretz. Halacha lema'aseh for the Sephardim, if something has a sweetness to it, it's gorem mezonot. If you eat an egg challah, and when you taste it, you taste a lot of egg, it doesn't taste like normal bread for you, it would be mezonot. So it has to do with how you feel about it. Taste it. Is this normal bread or does it feel strange to you?
Hold on. Ziv. So Friday night, most challahs are sweet nowadays. You know? Right. So you say we shouldn't say hamotzi, we should borem minei mezonot, and that's it?
But is it sweet enough that you would say this is like a sweet item for me, or is this bread? Would you have it in a sandwich? You get what I'm saying?
No, I would love it. I love it to have it also with a tea afterwards. It's delicious.
Okay, no. So, but that's the criteria. You have to taste it and say, do I feel like I'm eating bread, or is this different than bread? Is this like a cake to me? If by definition it would be not like bread for you, that's why the rabbis say when you eat pizza, let me give you the most classic example. On the plane, I just got back from the flight. On the plane, they serve you on the black kosher meals a bun that is covered in a bag. And what does the bun say? You don't need to get up, do Netilah on the plane. Eat the bun, it's covered, it's mezonot. Why do they say that it's mezonot? Because it's made with mei perot, meaning the liquid in it is not regular water. They use juice. I don't know, apple juice, orange juice, but they use juice to make this bread. According to Ashkenazim, once juice is made to use it instead of water, the bracha is mezonot. That's not the halacha for Sfaradim. So it could be deceiving. We think it's mezonot. The halacha over there is for Ashkenazim. For Sfaradim, what's the criteria? Says the Yalkut Yosef. I heard this from him, not in the book. I heard him live saying this on a video meeting, but he was saying that on the plane, how do you know if it's mezonot or not? You're allowed to take a little piece, don't say a bracha. Break a little piece, put it on your mouth. Say, this tastes like bread to me, or does it taste like cake to me? If it tastes like bread to you, the bracha is on hamotzi lechem min haaretz. And if you taste the bread on the plane, it tastes like bread. Even though it says on it mezonot, it's not sweet, it's not so different. And therefore he holds that bread is not netilah from now. So a lot of the times I give up on the bread. It's complicated on the plane to go do netilah. If you can, if it's easy for you, you also learn that it's not ideal to do the netilah inside a bathroom. We have room to rely on if we want to do it on the plane. We learned this when we learned the halakhot of the Tumah in the morning with the Chacham Ben Sion that holds that today the bathrooms are not considered an impure place. So even if you went in, you don't have to wash your hands. Anytime you step into a bathroom, even if you didn't do anything, it's a place of impurity and therefore you have to wash your hands. Halakha l'maaseh, they agree that if you're on a plane or somewhere where you don't have the option, you can rely on the opinion that there's no tumah there. So if you want to go up and do netilah, but don't say mezonot on that bread, that's only according to the Ashkenazi. So to answer,
Rabbi, sorry.
yeah,
One second. My wife, when she makes challah, she makes it every week and it's delicious. She literally puts sugar on the challah. There's like sprinkles of sugar on it.
Even if she puts sugar or chocolate chips on top of the challah, it's a different story. It's like taking a bread and spreading chocolate on it. It doesn't turn it into mezonot. It has to be baked with sweetness, meaning the dough. The dough itself, is it like a cake? If it's sweet, for us, it's borah min mezonot. There's a challah, I think, with raisins, like a sweet challah with raisins that sometimes they sell. Taste the dough, it's sweet. For us, it's 100% mezonot. That's not... If you want to say hamotzi on it, you know what you can do? You can eat 216 grams, like we just learned. If you eat a sufficient amount that is considered a seidah. By the way, Rav Ben Chaim is also very lenient on this. He always finds interesting loopholes. I'll give you the case. This year, we had to have matzot combined with Shabbat. A lot of people, they stopped bringing, no one wanted to eat bread on Friday night. What am I going to do with the crumbs? My house is kosher for Pesach. And how am I going to say hamotzi? Since most of the world already wasn't eating bread on Friday night, you could say hamotzi lechem haaretz on a regular matzah, and that's what we did. However, when did the trick begin? What was the challenge? Shabbat morning was already Erev Pesach, which means on Shabbat at night, we had to eat matzah. Halakha for the Sephardim is that a day before Pesach, we're allowed to eat matzah. But on the day that night is Pesach, you're not allowed to eat matzot. You can't taste the matzah. The matzah that you taste on Leil Seder has to be the first time of that day that you taste the matzah. So we could not take a matzah and say, hamotzi lechem haaretz. So what do? So the solution that is brought down is either you take a large amount of mezonot matzah, like the sweet matzah, that doesn't taste like matzah, it's sweeter. We're talking about matzah for Leil Seder. So if you take the egg matzah, eat a sufficient amount like that. There's another opinion. There's an opinion that you could fry a matzah, a regular matzah, then it changed its flavor. It doesn't have a taste like matzah anymore. And then you say hamotzi lechem haaretz on it, but it doesn't taste like matzah, so you're covered. But some people, it was hard. I fried like 20 matzot, and the whole family said hamotzi on a fried matzah. But those that wanted to eat a sufficient amount of mezonot could have done it. So when I told Rabbi Ben Chaim, you know how many egg matzahs you need to eat in order for you to say hamotzi, and if you want to do hamotzi on it, you have to eat like 8 matzot. He says, no, don't go to the strict opinion. Yes, the strict opinion says you have to have a lot of 8 kazait, that's 216 grams, it's almost 8 matzot. As we learned with him, he goes by volume. So first of all, he says that if you go by volume, it's much less matzot. But even so, he says there's an opinion, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein brings it, he says, and actually he's like, I think that's the real opinion. He says that if a normal person eats this as a meal, then that's considered hamotzi lechem haaretz. So how many egg matzahs does a normal person eat in a meal? 2 matzot maybe. You don't need 6 matzot, right? So he says you're allowed to rely on that and even say hamotzi, and you're only going to eat 2 egg matzahs. I know somebody that did that. My brother-in-law relied on that opinion. I thought it was easier to fry the matzot, but either way, you're allowed. So we have different opinions. But the dry opinion is, according to the Yalkut Yosef, and that's the book that we are learning, the chief rabbi of Israel. I should say the former. Now his brother is the chief rabbi of Israel. But the Yalkut Yosef, he says that it goes by weight. And in order to eat mezonot, to say that hamotzi, you have to have the 216 grams. So according to him, it would be difficult to rely on that opinion of have mezonot. But we always get to this place where Rav Ben Chaim, he has shoulders wide enough to give his own opinion, and we follow him. So I always bring both. But since we are learning the book of the Yalkut Yosef, then we should say what the halacha is over there. All right. So bottom line, according to Rav Ben Chaim, if it's an amount of mezonot that a normal person eats it as a meal, you could even say hamotzi amnet. According to Yalkut Yosef, no, it has to be 216 grams, so any less than that wouldn't be a meal, and you won't have to do the Hamotzi and Birkat Hamazon. Now an interesting case. Someone had a schug. You know what schug is? Schug is like a very spicy dip. Israel, Friday night without the schug is not Friday night. When I got married, I came to my in-laws' home. There was no hummus. There was no schug. I said, what is happening here? I don't know. I don't feel Shabbat. Oh, Hashem, we instituted it. Now they love it more than I do. We have the hummus, we have the schug. Someone took a big bite of schug. Now his mouth is burning. All right, forget Shabbat, during the week. So what does he do? He wants to take a piece of bread because if you drink, it's not going to help. But the real way to remove spiciness from the Torah is bread. It's known. So if I'm just eating bread, I don't want the bread. I'm only eating it to remove the spiciness from my throat. Do I have to do Netilah? Do I have to say Hamotzi on that bread? Halacha is no. I'm not eating the bread for the bread. I'm eating it to remove spiciness. So I don't have to do Netilah. And even if I eat a large amount of it, I still don't have to do it. That says if you want to be strict upon yourself and you're going to eat more than a kazait to remove the spiciness because you know that a tiny crumb is not going to do it. I'm going to eat a lot, then okay, if you want to be strict, you could do a netilah. But you don't have to, it's not required. And no hamotzi lechem min haaretz as well. You're eating bread. If on the test we ask you, how can I be eating bread without saying hamotzi lechem min haaretz? This is the answer. I'm not eating the bread for the bread. It's there to remove the spiciness or something like that. Then I won't have to do the netilah or hamotzi lechem min haaretz. What's the correct amount? We have 1 minute, so let's finish with this. We explained that we take the natlan, we fill it with our right hand, we move it to our left hand, and then we do 1, 2, 3, move it to our right hand, and 1, 2, 3. What is the amount that is required for the netilat yadayim? I mean, is there a minimum? So the answer is there is a minimum. The minimum is revi'it. Revi'it is like 81 grams. You use grams in the math, right? You know what I mean when I say grams. 81 grams or cc's, all right? So that's the minimum that you need to wash your hands. However, if Chachamim say the more water you add on the netilat yadayim, brings the bracha. I was once at Arav Pinchas Zavishli, the author of the Ateret Paz, the Mashari Rabbi, in his house, and I saw him doing netilat yadayim, and instead of taking one natla, doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, he filled one all the way to the top, and this was a huge natla, and he went 1, filled it all the way to the top. 2, he washed his hands, it took so long, but he was meticulous. Let's do the netilah with a lot of bracha and sheva. But what's the minimum? The minimum is 81 cc's, 81 grams. If you do it on your hands together, you're covered. The more you do, the better. All right. Exactly. We will conclude here and continue from the next time.
Thank you, Ziv.
Thank you for joining us today. It was great seeing you. Baruch haba.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Giacomo, sorry that I didn't greet you. I was deep in the...
I made it at the end. Sorry. I made it at the end. Again. I'm sorry.
Giacomo,
All the best.
even the minute we got an Italian taste, we're very happy.
Thank you. All the best.
Bye.
All the best. Bye-bye.